mic check real quick. Alright, we seem to be pretty good. We'll see how the commentary goes tonight. As I'm sure, or as I say as I'm sure, I know some of these drivers tonight stayed up pretty late watching Le Mans. I watched about 19 hours of it. I got about 5 hours of sleep between the, I want to say it was between the 15th and the 20th hour? No, I was up much later than that. It was more so from the 17th hour to the 22nd hour. That was as late as I stayed up. I woke up with 2 hours left and watched the rest of the race. Good job Ferrari for doing it twice. I know some people aren't very happy with the results, and granted, I would have preferred them to be a little bit different myself. But regardless, it was a good race. Manti taking yet another win this year, as they do in the GT3 class, GT3, the new class for this year. And then, of course, Ferrari in the 499P taking down the overall win yet again with the number 7 Toyota in second, which you can never count Toyota out, and the number 51 Team Ferrari 499P taking home third. Lawrence Vantour in the number 6 Penske Porsche 963 was just not able to catch the 51. They finished a second apart from each other. We had about 6 or 7 cars on the lead lap in Le Mans Hypercar, which was it was a very good finish for the class, I should say. And in LMP2, the number 22 United Autosport taking home the win in that class with, I want to say, the number 34 Inter-Europol taking home second, which I had actually predicted that car finishing in second, so lucky me. But all the rest of my predictions were thrown out the window. I had the number 23 LMP2 with Ben Keating and Felipe Albuquerque taking home the win in LMP2, with the Inter-Europol number 34 in second, and the number 14 AO Sport by TF Racing, aka Spike, LMP2. But they, as I suspected, had bad luck. They qualified on the pole. I didn't expect them to win it, but I wanted them to at least get third. But that team seems to never be able to shake bad luck. I believe it was back at Daytona when they debuted that car that they had to replace the nose, replace some body work on that car at one point when they were running very well, but they did not end up winning. There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of safety car. About 4.5 hours under safety car in one big block due to rain, which our endurance races can't seem to shake the curse of rain at all. Looks like it'll be a trend continuing on. Would be surprised if we get a full 24-hour of Spa. But for today's events, and before I forget, happy Father's Day. I know that we've got some fathers racing tonight. Happy Father's Day. Hope you got your celebrations, your thanks and gifts and dinners and all that sort of stuff done, because we have some racing to do tonight. We are here in South Africa at Kyalami, a longer and a little bit trickier track. Definitely technical, not quite as tight as the Mount Panorama Bathurst circuit that we were at last week with this series. And I don't believe that we're going to be dealing with any weather like we were last week either. Again, if you guys were not here last week, we had a scheduled night race with a night practice, 2 p.m. qualifier, and a 9 p.m. race. Well, there was no predicted rain in the practice session and the qualifying session. There was no predicted rain for the entire weekend. And we got to the, as Alarcon getting a little bit of a slide there. That's not going to be good for those tires. And then throwing the clutch in, trying to get that car spin back around. But as we got to the race last weekend at Mount Panorama, it was... Thank you, Ping, for the subscription. Greatly appreciate it. Helps me a lot. But as we got to the race in last weekend's round of the Sunday multi-class series, it was a downpour at the starting line, and there was all sorts of drama. It was a 1-hour race, so a lot of times this series does not have pit stops, but with the 1 hour, it is not necessarily a sprint. There is one mandatory pit stop, and I do believe it is mandatory tires, but there is one mandatory pit stop in the 1 hour format of this series. And with the rain, it threw all of the pit stop strategy completely out the window. No one had any idea what to do. They were trying to put a wet setup together. If drivers had not put a wet setup together, they were making sure that they had pit strategies kicked over to wets. Some drivers didn't have pit strategies that put wets on. It just got very dramatic at the very beginning of the race, and then as the race went on and we started to cycle through pit stops. So, Bathurst itself already a challenge, night racing itself already a challenge. You've got two big challenges tacked onto one race, and then you add some water to it, and it is not one of those things where it is add water and you're done. It makes it a lot more difficult to get that racing in. Whenever it's in the wet, moves are harder to come by, lines are harder to come by, pace is not there. And if you have not practiced in the wet, you aren't going to necessarily know the wet lines. You don't use the curbs as much. You definitely stick to one line. Don't necessarily venture off the line, and you have to understand how the track will progress as the track starts to dry up, which being at night did not dry up at all. The Le Mans finish was like a Formula 1 race. Everything builds up to the end, but nothing ends up actually happening. I was expecting the number 50 to run out of hybrid energy. It did not. It came across the line with 1% left, and they declared the winner. The Toyota, while it could have pushed, it closed the gap from 30 seconds down to 12 seconds right there in the last 15 minutes of the race. Nothing happened there. The number 51 Ferrari was running away from the number 6 Ferrari of Lawrence Vantour. If they had Kevin Estra in that car, they may have been able to close that gap, but that gap stayed around 1 second for the last 10-15 minutes of the race. Which I was very surprised with the year that Penske has had at Daytona, at the Indy 500, winning the NASCAR championship last year with Ryan Blaney. I was very, very surprised to see that Penske was not going to even take a podium this weekend. I had expected them to win the race. They were on the lead lap. They were only a few seconds behind the leaders, but they weren't there. They did not have the car in the right place when it came time to it. And that is just the way it goes. To finish first you must finish, and all of those drivers finished. All of those cars finished. It just came down to who was ahead of the other. And that number 50 Ferrari had just about everything going against it. They had issues, they had penalties. Granted, a lot of those issues and penalties were no fault of their own. I said that wrong. The penalties that they had, it was their fault. They did deserve those penalties. The first one being I believe it was a 5-second penalty or a drive-through. I don't exactly remember, for an unsafe release in front of the number 3 Cadillac when they had a tandem stop. So they did get a penalty for that, and I believe they may have gotten another penalty for an unsafe release. But then they also had an issue with the door on the car. The door popped open, which happened to an LMP2 as well, but they had to put a new door on that car. I believe it may have been the LMP2 they had to put a new door on. I know that there was an LMP2 they put a new door on, but I don't remember exactly what happened with the Ferrari. I was asleep while that happened, so I'm going purely based off of what I have been told by others. And there was an Aston Martin upside down, which I was asleep. I did not get to see it, but an Aston Martin was upside down. We do have a couple new names in here. No, Michaels is 1, and currently running up the top or close to the top, currently running P2 overall, just behind Saba, just a couple hundredths of a second behind Saba in that Rova livery. Which I believe that Rova livery was, I cannot remember the name of that team, but the team that was running the Rova livery in the Nordschleife 24-hour that had that incident with the Cayman and BMW 1 Series heading up into Fuchsrow or Foxhole. The series is at the Nordschleife next week for the final round of this season, actually. And now that you say that, I should take a look at the championship standings. See if we have any battles going on. In GT2, it's not very close. Busch has a 80-point lead, or an 84-point lead in GT2, with Harrell in P2 and Wagner in P3. Both of those drivers 10 points away from each other, so the podium could flip-flop, but it looks like Busch pretty much has the win clinched for the GT2 championship. Now on the GT3 side of things, it is a lot closer. Car number 44 of Saba, who is currently at the top of the timing boards right now, is leading the not leading the championship field. Championship fight. He's leading the field right now. He is currently P4, but did not race in this series until the 4th round of it, but is up in the 4th place. And then Darnell, Mott, and Rivera are up there. Mott getting a lot of points with a weekend sweep at Zolder. Actually, not a weekend sweep at Zolder, with a win at Zolder. got his first race win in race 2 of round 3 when we were at Zolder, I believe, or round 4. Or round 5, not sure. I believe it was round 5, because this is round 7. Next week is round 8, I think. I could be completely wrong. But Darnell in the lead in GT3 with 244 points. Mont in second with 224. Rivera in third with 222. The championship very close there, but Rivera not racing very much recently, dropping out of that fight if he will not be racing tonight. And Saba would be looking to move up into the third position and is definitely in a position to strike and take the position, the second place position of Mont, but potentially the first place position of Darnell if Darnell is unable to hold back Saba. He is currently half a second off the pace in this practice session. But something to look out for in terms of the championship fight. And also, hello YouTube chat, thank you for tuning in on the YouTube side, and if you are in here on the Twitch side or on the YouTube side, if you would please consider following on both. The YouTube channel does not have very many subscribers, so I don't have as many people watching on that side, but if you guys would not mind subscribing to the YouTube channel, help that grow, help get more people into the broadcast, help get more people into the races. This Sunday series has 60 registers, 60 drivers registered, but a lot of drivers not showing up. So, while we have had a pretty consistent group, we get new drivers every week. Hello Darnell, thank you for tuning in. Hope you run a good race tonight. And car number 555 of Mott, I believe we should go on board with here if I can. So, coming through turn 16, uphill hairpin of Ingwe, before we get onto the very long pit straight, going to be a very crucial zone, a little bit of downhill so you are carrying more speed. You come through the kink, this is technically turn 1, before we head slightly up the hill for the hard braking hairpin of Crowthorn. Then tight to the inside, floated out to the outside, a little bit like Coda, if it had a little bit less elevation before the turns 3 and 4 of the Jukes K sweep. Before we head, or actually we just came through the left-hander of Barbecue down towards the straight before we get to the long right-hand sweeper of Sunset, and then run down to the hard braking zone before the slightly acute left-hander of Clubhouse. Another short straight section to come up the gears before we get to the S's of turn 8 and 9. So I believe we have maybe a little bit of connection issue with Mont here. And then we head towards the hardest braking zone of the track, the hairpin of turn 10 Luke Hop, and then the kink of 11 on the exit of Luke Hop. Head down the hill for an uphill cambered left-hand turn of Mineshaft, turn 12, and then another hard braking zone for a slightly more open turn 13 with a lot of runoff on the outside of the Crocodiles, and then you come through the little sweeper of 14 before we get to the fast kink of Cheetah, like Blanchimont, but going the wrong way, and then once again coming towards turn 16 of Ingwe. That's a lap. It wasn't the cleanest by Mott, but it is showing to have some pace. As we have some cars coming out of the pit lane on the left-hand side, we may go ahead and ride along with Mott as we have two cars of Breakfast and Drain, two GT2s ahead. It has been a complete toss-up of whether or not the GT2s and GT3s will be faster at these tracks. At Red Bull Ring, it was quite literally a toss-up. We were running very similar pace. at Bathurst last week, it did seem to be that the GT3s were the faster car, but tracks like Paul Ricard or Zolder were also a toss-up. The GT2s were able to get a little bit more of a run on the cars coming out of the chicanes, but still not much of a difference. Every track that we have been to has been majorly a toss-up. It has come down to driver skill. Next week when we go to the Nordschleife, it will once again be a toss-up, but we will see the power of the GT2s versus the aerodynamics and slightly better handling of the GT3s. They have top speeds within around 20 to 30 kilometers an hour of each other, so they are not necessarily a high disparity in speed between the classes. It is more so where the aerodynamics comes in. The GT2s do have quite a bit of aerodynamics, not to the extent of a touring car or a GT4, but they just do not have as highly advanced aerodynamics as a GT3. Once again, back on board with Mott as we get back to our garage view. Michael's in the Rova liveried BMW now into the lead. The provisional lead. This is still just a practice session, but a 10th of a second gap to Saba, and growing the gap to Darnell behind to half a second. Bush, the leading GT2 currently, 6.7 tenths of a second behind the time of Michaels. So the GT2s may be at a little bit of a disadvantage here, this being a more technical track. And while they do have the long pit straights and a few different straights to exercise that higher top speed, more horsepower, they are not really able to capitalize on it too much with the S's and hairpins that comprise the majority of the turns on this circuit. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Happy Father's Day. Thank you for those on the YouTube side. Hope everyone has had a good day. Hope everybody's got their water to their side. I know I do. And we hope to have some good racing tonight. And we will have a server reset before the session is over, which I believe will result in a short 5-minute free practice session in order to get everyone back into the server. The race format tonight will be a 15-minute conjoined qualifier. An overall qualifier. We are not doing a split qualifier in the GT2, GT3 multiclass. Only in the GT2 and GT4 multiclass series, which is also a great series if you would like to consider participating in that, or joining in the broadcast for that series that is on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central US, because I know that we do have quite a few different drivers. I don't know the time conversion, but Google does, and that is a great tool. But tonight's session will be 2 30-minute sprints, no pits. Should not really be seeing too much tire wear on the cars. We don't have too many Porsche drivers out there. But overall, should be pretty decent in terms of tire health, tire longevity. Should not be seeing too much in terms of tire death. Once again, back on with Mott, coming out of the turn 16 of Ingwe to bring an end to this session as the server gets reset as the clock hits 0. We will be back in just a second when the server is put back up. And welcome back. We are still here. We are just waiting for the server to repopulate as those drivers who were not able to get into the session get their opportunity to get into the session, albeit due to an error or either a server error or something like that. But a 5-minute practice session before we get started once more with the qualifying session tonight. Just waiting for the server to repopulate and then get on with the qualifying session, a 15-minute qualifying session. We are seeing times down around the 1 minute 41 second mark. So I believe that should be the benchmark. The GT3 is looking to have the upper hand here at Kyalami. As we are riding on with Norman, coming through the kink into turn 2. Which the turn 1 at this track is very, well, I guess you could say the turns, not turn 1, but turns 2, 3, and 4 are very, very Coda-esque. A uphill hairpin left-hander to immediately to some S's that are cambered. Granted, those S's are not anywhere near as tight as those at Coda, but still bear some slight resemblance. It is looking to be a good qualifying session. We know some of those drivers do not throw their best laps out there at the very beginning. Norman getting a little bit wide, a little bit squirrely coming out of turn 11. The corner just after turn 10 of Lukop. I hope I say that right. I don't necessarily know the South African dialect, so if anyone would like to correct me on the pronunciation or enunciation of any of the turn names tonight, I would very much appreciate it. Turn 16 of Ingwe, I think I've got that one. Turn 1 of Crowthorne, I could be wrong. Turns 3 and 4 of the Jukes K Sweep, I could be wrong. Turn 5 of Barbecue, I hope I know Barbecue. Turn 6 of Sunset and Clubhouse. Turn 7, the S's 8 and 9. Lukop, I may know, that is turn 10. And then turns 12, 13, 14, and 15 of Mineshaft, Crocodiles, and Cheetah. I believe I know those words. Those are fairly easy to understand words in the English language. Oh, as I have messed up the camera. Well, we are currently stuck in chase cam, which should not stay for very long, as we have a minty car out here, a minty 992 GT3R. Salty, you are racing tonight. Yes, you are. You are racing tonight. Be very interested to see the performance of the Porsche here. Does seem to be scrubbing the turns a lot as we come into the braking zone of Ingwe. 2 tires on the inside, followed it out to the outside curve on the right hand side. Welcome in, Rowan. Glad you are here with us. You always, I believe it's your wife who joins the broadcasts and always cheers you on. Always good to see them in here. Could be wife, could be girlfriend. I don't necessarily know. I just know that Rowan has a fan in every single stream. And as the server gets reset, we are now live with qualifying. Who is the first out? Bush is the first out. Bush taking advantage of that open track, getting that clean air, wanting to get that lap set first. It is going to be a little bit busier than we usually see, because with this Sunday series we do a combined overall qualifier, not a split qualifier like the Wednesday series. So if you're coming from the Wednesday series, we do a 15-minute combined qualifier in this series instead of the 20-minute, 10-minute split. Bush has the W, calling it now. That is a little bit of a strong call, as in the practice sessions, Bush has not been the one at the top of the charts. It was Michaels and Saba, the slugfest between them. The lap times within a 10th at the end of the session, with Darnell bringing up third. Bush was in fourth, and anything can happen, as we saw with Le Mans last night, or yesterday into today. Yesterday, last night, and today. You don't have to qualify on pole to win the race, and anyone should know that, but Bush is no stranger to qualifying on the pole and winning the race, as Bush pretty much has the GT2 championship locked down. A good result tonight would just further ensure his victory in the GT2 championship. Now Bush first across the line to reset his time and get on with the first flying lap. Coming through turn 2, down the hill into turn 3 and 4, then the braking zone of Barbecue, turn 5. With a short break to go up the gears, build some speed, before you have the long right-hander of turn 6, Sunset, which is just going to eat up tires in those rear-engine cars, those Porsches. Before you come into the braking zone, left-hander of 7, Clubhouse. And then, once again, a short break before the S's of turns 8 and 9. Bush very much making use of those curbs, before you head up the hill once more into the hard braking zone for the hairpin of Lou Cup. And come through there. The kink of 11 at the exit of Lukamp. It is a little bit of a late apex before we head to turn 12 of Mineshaft, the cambered inside dipper, before we head to the hard braking zone. Another hairpin, a little bit more open, very wide road, plenty of runoff to use of the Crocodiles, and then 14 before we come through the kink of Cheetah, turn 15, and then turn 16. Ingwe, very, very crucial point, as you have to carry a lot of speed, or you need to carry a lot of speed in order to have a good run down the pit straight. A 142.2 is the time to beat. And as the rest of the field cycles through, we will see where they stand. Busch currently on provisional pole with a 42.2. Slokey up into P2. Mott P3. Darnell, one of the top contenders currently. P4, very far off the pace, maybe had a bad lap. But still 10 minutes left to get that lap in. You have a few more tries. Michaels, who was in the first position at the end of the free practice session, up into P2, just a quarter of a second behind the time of Busch. We have seen those times into the 41s, but we do not have optimal track yet. With the cars on track, it may rubber in as we get closer to the end of the session. We may see some last-minute qualifiers. Saba just ahead of Busch here in the foreground as we hear him going down the gears into Lukamp. Busch in the Maserati MC20 GT2. Saba in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. Saba also a driver with a lot of speed in that car. A very talented driver. Would not be surprised to see him up in the front. It was a slugfest in the practice session between Saba and Michaels. Just waiting to see who will be the one to bring it home on top. Busch getting some nice rear rotation out of that GT2 coming through Cheetah up the hill into Ingwe. A lot of the curb on the inside, trying to get that car pointed as straight as possible, as fast as possible. Saba just a 10th behind Busch. Busch not improving on the previous lap, staying with a 42.2. Saba displacing Michaels down into P3 for now, but I know the times will drop. Currently the track is not at its optimum, but we should see the track develop as we head later on into the session. Should rubber up a little bit more, and would not be surprised to see the lap times fall. Michaels, a newcomer in this series, first time racing with us tonight, I believe. I don't think that I would miss a driver who is up in the top of the leaderboard for now. So I believe Michael's first time driving with us tonight, showing some serious pace. And then coming through the S's up the hill towards Lukamp. Running wide will invalidate the lap. Rear of the car bouncing all over the place, making contact with the wall. Will need to go back to the garage and repair that car, and they will. Man, another newer driver in this series. Not sure if it is their first race with us tonight, but I do believe it is, as I do not recognize that pink and orange and black Mercedes AMG GT3. And I believe Crilly, first time in the Sunday series in that black and mint Porsche 992 GT3R. Good Gazelle with a lot of supporters in the previous round at Bathurst. Also a newer driver in this series. Maldonado, also a newer driver in this series, but not their first time participating in the Sunday series. Darnell displacing Michaels down a position into fourth. Michaels with that contact with the wall, contact with the Armco barrier on the previous lap, coming out of the pits with a couple more tries to set a faster lap. Definitely has the pace in that car and may be the better option to wait a little bit to set that lap. As the track develops, you may see a touch of optimum at the very end of the session, and we may have a final lap shootout for the pole position. Has not been rare. Not rare in TRC, not rare in the Sunday series, definitely not rare in the Wednesday series. And the top 4 overall, granted the leading car right now is a GT2, but the top 4 overall within a quarter of a second of each other, the top 6 within 1 second, and the top 11 within 2 seconds. There is a lot of time to be found, but with whatever time you find, there is a lot of places to be made. Michael's now on a green lap this time, looking to improve behind Busch with some traffic ahead. Hopefully that traffic will not hinder Michael's for the lap. They do get the blue flags. It's just a matter of the driver understanding and trying their best to get out of the way of the leading car. Busch going invalid on their lap. Michael's still behind, maybe close enough for some tow, as Saba up into the lead with a 41.8. Saba, the first driver to dip the times into the 41s, parking that car in the gravel, returning to the garage maybe to get some fresh tires on that car and go out and try it again. Saba currently P1 with Busch P2 now. Now the top 4 within 3/4 of a second, but still, any time gained is a lot of places to be made. Michael's still on a clean lap. Darnell still on a clean lap. Pushing, pushing, pushing as we get closer and closer to the end of this qualifying session. Michael's improving by a 10th, puts him up into 3rd overall, 2nd in class. Improving by 2/10. Keeps him 3rd, improving by 3/10, displaces Busch, puts him ahead of Busch. As it looked like Michael's nearly invalidated the lap there, coming out of the Crocodiles, coming through Cheetah. It was very wide, still a clean lap. Not as good of an exit of Ingwe, but will the time improve? As Michaels comes across the line, he gets those 2/10, beats out Busch by just 11/100ths of a second. Enough for P2, but not enough for P1. Michaels has gotten that BMW below the 42-second mark, but has not been able to do it so far. Still a couple laps left in the session, about 3 laps left if Michaels has the fuel. Saba also looking to improve, coming out of the hairpin of Lukamp. As Darnell looking to improve as well, desperately needing the championship points in the GT3 series. Darnell still leading, but Saba is the threat, and Darnell needs to do everything he can to keep Saba down. Mott also finding their way into the podium of the GT3 series. And Rivera currently P3, I believe, currently P3 or P4, not having raced recently. I don't think they are going to continue with this season. So Saba looking to move up into the 4th position at least. As the field continues to cycle through, Michael's in the pits. Will be able to have time for one more outlap and one more flying lap before the timer hits 0. But does Michaels try to hold on to the P2? Busch in the pits, it usually means that he is done with his qualifying session. Dropping the car off the jacks, maybe coming out. Busch is coming out. We'll try to improve. We'll try to put that car on the front row. Only needs 11 thousandths of a second. And as Michaels still sits in the pits, Darnell also in the pits. Darnell not improving. And it seems to be, as the clock is ticking down, that both of those drivers will be locked into their position. Saba looking to buy some insurance on that pole position. Busch maybe thinking that he's got the pace to get on the pole. If he doesn't have the pace to get on the pole, he should definitely have the pace to get that 100th of a second that he needs to get onto the front row. and to push Michaels back onto the second row. Slokey into the pits, P4, displaces Darnell, knocks Darnell down 1 spot. The top 7 still within 1.1 seconds, top 11 still within 2 seconds, as there have been improvements made. Saba coming out of turn 16 of Ingwe, coming across the line, does not improve on that lap. We'll have one more try, as anyone in the pits is considered done with their qualifying session. Busch warming those tires up, desperately trying to get those temperatures up before he comes across the line to start his final flying lap in this qualifying session. Just needs 100th of a second and 1,000th of a second to improve. Desperately trying to find that temperature. You see him weaving. These GT2s don't have any tire blankets, so he has had to build maybe 2 or 3 laps worth of temperature in 1 lap. He will have some time to build that temperature as the lap goes on, but as the clock hits 57 seconds, Busch has 1 more lap to try to displace Michaels or Saba. He's either trying to get onto the front row or onto the pole. Both would be good. Both still keep him leading in class. Wagner in P2 in GT2, P6 overall, will have 1 more lap to try to improve. Needs a second to get onto the pole. Needs 6/10 in order to get onto the front row. Still sitting P2 Drain, now coming across the line to set 1 more lap. Currently P3, just a couple tenths behind the P2 GT2 of Wagner. The GT3 field at the front seems all but set, as Michaels, Slokey, and Darnell, the top GT3s, currently in the pits. They will not improve. Saba takes 1/10 out of his time, down to a 7:10, as car number 103 of Bird, late entry, looking to improve on their time, looking to move up the order. Will not move up the order. Car number 65 of Daharo, coming through Ingwe, looking to improve. As he comes across the line, Busch seems to have abandoned that lap, will not improve. Up into P12 overall, ahead of Rowan. Car number 19 of Merkel, still staying valid. Looked like he ran a little bit too wide coming out of the final corner. Does improve 1 position up ahead of Johnston. Then car number 12 of Norman in the Lamborghini GT3 will be the last car across the line before we get the field set for the race. Norman taking the shortest line possible up into P18 overall. As they stand in GT2, Busch, your pole sitter, Wagner in P2, Drain P3, Harrell P4, Daharo P5, Rowan P6, Harvey P7, Bird P8, Poplinski P9, Breakfast P10. Saba in P1 in GT3 and overall. Michaels P2, Slokey P3, displacing Darnell down 1 spot. Darnell P4, Kelta P5, Mott P6. 2 Aston Martin drivers starting beside each other on the grid. They have both been known to have a sister car slugfest. Will we see the same tonight? Mann, the newcomer in P8, Merkel P9, Johnston P10, Gutgazelle P11, Norman P12, Crilly P13, I believe their first time in this series tonight, and Maldonado P14. I say Michaels also with their first time in this series tonight, as we await the field to get reset as they form the grid at their spots on the track before we get started with the formation lap. And I will take this time to once again say Happy Father's Day to those fathers out there, or to any fathers listening. We have some fathers in or on the grid tonight, and I know that we have some fathers tuning in tonight Thank you all for what you do, and if you are listening, Dad, happy Father's Day. The crab was good, and I love you. Awaiting the grid to be set, as the grid is now set. Saba and Michaels on the front row, both very close to each other in times in the practice session. Michaels just not able to put the lap together in the qualifying session. Maybe has the pace in the race, but is Michaels going to have to be in the chase? Busch in P3, as Busch was not able to get that time out of the lap and get ahead of Michaels to get onto the front row, but still with a little bit of a buffer in class to the P6 car of Wagner, who is a little bit further back, trying to see a little bit of the back of the field. Cannot quite do that, but also, if you would like to consider supporting the stream, the easiest way to do that is to hit that subscribe button, and if you have Amazon Prime, you have a free Twitch Prime subscription that you can use. It takes away all ads with the streams, and it gives you a nice little icon plus the subscription emotes. That the more subscriptions I get, the more emotes that I can add, the fancier emotes I can add, and the more perks I can add. It also throws me a little bit of dinero for doing it. So if you would like to consider subscribing, I would greatly appreciate it. About 25 seconds away from the call for engines fired, as Saba will be leading the field to the green flag on the formation lap, as we will be on board with Saba for that engine start. As Saba has not started that car yet, as he does now, the Huracan GT3 Evo. And as the clock runs down to 0, we will be on board with Saba for the formation lap. As Busch gets sent to the pit lane, maybe something with the setup that he was not exactly comfortable with. Busch will be starting from the pit lane, as it will give him a little bit more work to do. We are having 2 races tonight, a 30-minute race 1 and a 30-minute race 2. Not looking at any variable weather, and as it currently stands now, we should not have any hazardous weather to be looking at in either session tonight. But as we learned at Bathurst, there was not any predicted rain, but there was rain. So if it rains, so be it, let it rain. One thing that I assume the drivers would have learned from the previous week would be that if there is even no chance of rain, that you should probably go ahead and make a rain setup. It cannot hurt. As Saba still leading the field to the line. Busch starting in the pits with a couple drivers behind, also starting in the pits. Who are those drivers? That looks to be the Porsche 992 GT3 of Crilly, the GT2 of Bird. Bird, Harvey, Gutgazelle, and Crilly all starting from the pit lane. Maybe asleep at the wheel, or maybe tinkering with the setup as they were coming to the line, or as they were coming to the formation lap start. Saba still leading the field as we come through turn 10. Lukop now. We should get the command for 2x2 from race control somewhere around the Crocodiles or Cheetah. I believe the 2x2 may come at Crocodiles. As we get the 2x2 now, and the field will form up on Saba and assume their race starting formation. Saba leading the field, Michaels to his right with Slokey, and Darnell will be just behind. Bush starting from the pit lane, throwing a little bit of a wrench in the GT2 fight. Saba thought he would have a GT2 traffic keeping Darnell at bay behind, but now Wagner will be leading the GT2 field to the line. As we come out of turn 16, Ingwe getting ready to take the green flag for the first time tonight. Saba leading the field to the line with Michaels directly to his right. And green, 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 we are racing here in the Sunday Multi-Class Series at Kyalami. So they head through the kink of one, down towards the first hard braking zone of turn 2. Saba has the advantage at the inside. Michaels tucks in behind. The rest of the field makes it through nicely. Saba still in the lead. Michaels giving chase, though, all over the rear bumper, but we'll have to warm those tires up as we have a couple cars diving 2 tires into the grass. Wagner assuming the 3rd place position overall with a nice lead to any GT2 competitors that he would have. Harrell, the next GT2 in line, who is just behind Darnell. We will start to see how the GT2 pace ends up looking, where those GT2s end up in the overall grand scheme of things. As Michaels very, very offensive on Saba, looking for that move early. Thought he may have tried to set up the move as they headed into Lukop. It was not going to happen there. And then as they head down the hill towards the mine shaft, Michaels will just have to tuck in behind Saba. Michaels has the pace, but does he have the longevity of that pace to keep up with Saba? He needs to find that pace early. As Saba ran that pace that he needed to in the qualifying session, he's already got that pace locked down. Michaels was unable to put the lap together in qualifying, but maybe with a car to chase, that pace will come. As they come across the line to complete the first lap, Saba trying to break the toe slightly. Michaels and Wagner pulling away from the rest of the field. A slight gap developing between Wagner and Darnell. That is this leading trio of 2 GT3s and 1 GT2 breaking away from the P3 of Darnell, the P3 GT3 of Darnell, the P2 GT2 of Harrell with Drain in tow. Not quite fighting just yet, but this is the battle for the P2 and P3, the rest of the podium positions in GT2. Michaels still trying to make this move work on Saba, applying the pressure, trying to get a foot in the door to then work that door open. Michaels trying everything that he can, but the more that these two fight, the more that they close up the gap to Wagner and Darnell. Wagner has nothing to do with this fight, but it does not mean that he can throw a wrench in it. Michaels once again all over the rear bumper of Saba, may look for the move down into Lukop. Once again, it is not on, as I think we may go on board with Michaels very early in this session. If I can get over to the car of Michaels, we will go on board with Michaels, as this seems to be a pretty good battle for the lead. As they come through the Crocodiles into the kink of Cheetah, down towards the hard braking zone of Ingwe. Michaels trying to use this BMW. It does have a high top speed, trying to use everything he can to keep up with the toe of Saba ahead. Does not seem to be that he has the pace. A second slower on that lap, maybe due to a mistake. Times that we were looking at were in the 41-second range. Currently times in the 43s for the field across the board. Michael's still trying to close this gap on Saba, but that Lamborghini showing to be a little bit more agile around this tricky Kyalami racetrack. Gap right at 1.1 seconds. We'll see if that gap drops as they come towards the sweeper of Sunset. Michael's doing everything he can to use as much of the track as he can. The gap does drop a couple tenths through Sunset. Michael's on a good lap. You see that green delta, just trying to close the gap as much as they can for a potential overtake at Lukop or Ingwe. Gap closing up nicely as that BMW using its superior top speed to the Lamborghini Huracan just needs to get the handling aspect of this car up to par with the Lamborghini. As they head down the hill towards the mine shaft, towards the two corners of the crocodiles, using the gears to kind of rotate that car before you get back on the throttle, before you head to the kink of the cheetah. A very tall sausage curb on the inside that I can imagine you do not want to get too much of. Cars are not that hungry, but as they come across the line, all through that lap, the gap has grown 0.2 of a second. Michael's just 1/10 of a second off of that pace of Saba, but not able to get that move done now. And as they continue to lap, Michael's now under attack from Wagner. GT2, this is out of class, but Wagner showing that he has superior pace, and Michael's may not be able to hold on to this P2 for too much longer as that Lamborghini is getting smaller in the distance. Darnell in that Nissan Nismo GTR as car number 555 of Mott around at Barbecue, at the exit of Barbecue. Maybe got two tires onto the outside as Breakfast and, it looks like Breakfast and Norman having a little bit of a battle here. Not for position. Tuning in with the pole-sitting GT2 of Busch as he is cycling his way through the field. Now looking to make his way past Daharo. Does get that move locked down as they head into Lukop, getting that move done under the brakes. A nice lunge into turn 10. That does put Busch into P5 in GT2. He's got a little bit more work to do as we are just 7 minutes into this race. But getting a little bit of the curb coming through the Crocodile and not quite getting the run out of there that he was looking for. Daharo closing that gap up behind slightly, but will not be able to get that move back as he now looks to take the position away from the fan favorite Rowan. Busch in tow just behind. And the rest of the field lining out nicely. Johnston with Harvey and Good Gazelle in tow. Norman coming through Ingwe now, but a small group from Johnston to Poplinski. 5 cars here in this group. As we have a car off the track, I'm not sure exactly who that is. Car number 65 of Daharo. Daharo around on the inside. The inside wall looks like he may have hit the Armco barrier there, as he is now trying to get that car back onto the racing surface. I'm not sure if there was any contact there or not. I don't see too much damage. May have been an incident under his own volition. As he comes through Barbecue now, headed towards Sunset as he got that car back onto the track. Saba still your leader. Michaels has not lost the position to Wagner yet, as Wagner now may be under attack from Darnell. Darnell looking to move forward and get involved with the podium fight to get that Nissan up to the rear bumper of that BMW. Harrell with Slokey behind. Slokey was able to out-qualify Darnell, but lost a couple positions at the race start. Alarcon and Kelta in a battle here as they come down the pit straight as they come across the line. Kelta fully tucked into the slipstream of that McLaren 720S of Alarcon as they head towards the braking zone of Crowthorne. Kelta not able to get that move done yet, but is in a position to set the move up as they come down the hill towards Barbecue. Both drivers getting a lot of that inside curve, floating the car out to the outside. Kelta trying to get this move done as they come through Sunset. Fully in the slipstream, but maybe in a little bit of aero wash, taking some air off the front of that Aston Martin. May cause the gap to drop slightly. Car number 777 and car number 4, I believe, are actually not 77 and 4, it is 777 and 212 of Poplinski. Johnston and Poplinski, I think, having a coming together at Crowthorne, as now Bird and DeHaro in a battle at the end of the field. DeHaro ahead of Bird. Bird trying to hold on to the toe of DeHaro, but I believe he may lose that toe. Back on with Alarcon and Kelta. Busch now, as he cycles through with the rest of the field, trying to gain those positions, now up into P4 in GT2. As Kelta still trying to make this move on Alarcon as they come through Cheetah. Busch pushing in that GT2 to get those spots done. He's got most of the work done. 2/3 of the race left to go, though. And as Kelta goes wide, Busch should be able to exercise the higher top speed of that GT2 to maybe get this move done before they get to turn 1 of Crowthorne. Busch giving a flash to the light saying, hey, I'm in a faster class, I'm faster than you should let me by. Busch looking for the move, but Kelta not letting it happen as he is now all over the rear bumper of Alarcon. And Busch knows that this battle is going on. They don't have to give him way. He would like to get way. But Kelta still trying to get this move done on Alarcon as Busch may try to set up around the outside as they head into Sunset. Side by side, Kelta may let him through, and Busch will now cycle through, now between Kelta and Alarcon. Then as they head towards head to turn 7 and then to the S's of 8 and 9. Kelta trying to follow the momentum of Busch ahead as Wagner up into the lead, as I think Darnell and Saba may have had an incident. Michaels and Slokey now together. There may have been there seems to have been a large shakeup at the lead. Wagner up in front pretty much all on his own. Darnell and Saba now giving chase as Darnell looks to go around Wagner. Saba following behind Wagner. Which will he cycle through with as he is following Wagner, who will have the higher top speed but is broken off of that toe. Darnell to the side of Wagner as Saba tries to fill the gap. As they come through turn 1, there's 3 cars all in a tight space. Darnell currently holding on to the GT3 lead, Wagner with the overall lead. Now Darnell looking for a move, maybe on the inside at Sunset. Saba just holding behind, waiting patiently as Michaels now ahead of Slokey, just trying to get back onto the tail end of this lead GT3 battle and overall lead battle as Darnell is trying to get this position back away from Wagner as they head towards Lukop up the hill. Saba may be close enough for a lunge into Lukop. Darnell closes the door, parks it on the apex. That does compromise the exit slightly, but I don't think Saba will have the room as they head down the hill towards Mineshaft. And as these cars battle, as they hinder each other, they are just opening up the room for Michaels. Michaels getting a second as they come through the turn, or the Sector 3 timing zone. Michaels closing that gap on this lead trio by a second, as Darnell is all over the rear bumper of Wagner, but getting a lot of that sausage curb on the inside of the Cheetah, and that greatly upsets the front of the car. He loses a little bit of time, not too much, as he is still all over the rear bumper of Wagner, but Saba still trying to hold on to this lead duo. Saba does have the pace, but does not have the space to get this move done. And as they come through turns 3 and 4, as they head towards barbecue, as Darnell is tucked in the slipstream of Wagner. They come through Sunset, heading up the hill towards Clubhouse. The gap is growing slightly, as Michaels has now taken another half a second out of that gap. The gap was 3.3 at the beginning of last lap, was 2.3 at the end of last lap, is 1.9 now. As the battle rages on, it is only bringing Michaels closer and closer to this battle, now fully in the background as the battle comes on in the foreground. Wagner still holding on to the overall lead with Darnell all over the rear bumper. And as Darnell and Wagner continue to battle, that will only keep Saba inching closer, and even more so keep Michaels inching closer. Busch now onto the back of Drain, trying to get back onto the GT2 podium. Wagner with Darnell still in tow. Darnell trying desperately to get this move done as they head down towards Ingwe, setting that car nice and wide to the outside to try and get a run. The Nissan Nismo GTR does have a lot of top speed, but it does not match the top speed of a GT2. Saba and Darnell both opting for the outside line, but the GT2 able to pull back across. Darnell going for the crossover move as they head down towards Crowthorne, and Darnell closes the door on Wagner, places him directly in front of Saba, and a now maybe flustered Wagner trying to pick up the pieces and get back on, get that move back, get the position back, as Wagner does want the overall lead, but Darnell once again closes the door as they come through Sunset. Up the hill towards Clubhouse, Darnell pushing, nearly running that car off the track, but this has still closed that gap. Michaels now fully onto the back of this lead pack. The gap was 3 seconds at one point, and now Michaels all over the rear of this pack. And as the battle continues, Slokey may be able to get onto this fight. Busch still trying to close down that move and get P2 away from Harrell. Now he got the move done on Drain, trying to get it done on Harrell. Saba went for a late move on Darnell, and that caused contact as Michaels now goes past Wagner and past Saba. Michaels and Darnell now the lead two. Darnell just trying to survive the chaos and let them make their own chaos behind as they come through the crocodiles before they head into the kink of the Cheetah. But Darnell gets all sorts of out of shape, and now Michaels up into the lead. Wagner looking to take advantage of that, and Darnell parking it on the apex to try and keep Saba behind. Will hold on to the position for now, but Michaels, in his debut race in the Sunday Series, now finds himself in the lead. Wagner P2 overall, Darnell still P2 in GT3 with Saba P3 in GT3. Slokey now on to the very back of this battle just by half a second. The fight rages on as we have now 5 cars all in one spot. 5 cars as Darnell gets touched. Darnell gets touched, and there's been an incident, a massive incident at the front of the field. Darnell drops back. Wagner behind Michaels. Michaels in the lead all on his own. Wagner in P3 overall now, as now Slokey finds himself in P2. Saba with that contact with Darnell, I believe, either the contact with Darnell or contact with Wagner. Saba finds himself in P3 with Darnell now down to P4. Harrell able to pick up the pieces, but Busch, starting all the way from the pit lane, has now found himself onto the very back of this pack. as Michaels, who showed that he had the pace in the practice session, was unable to get that lap put together in the qualifying session, now finds himself at the lead of the field with a large gap, 2 seconds to the P2 Ferrari 296 of Slokey. Wagner now leading GT2, but for how much longer, as you see just creeping into the background, Busch, the GT2 pole sitter by quite a large margin, just creeping into the picture here behind Harrell and Darnell. Busch trying to get this move done on Harrell as soon as possible. Only 11 minutes left in this 30-minute race one. And as they head down towards Ingwe, Busch late on the brakes tries to put the car in the space that Harrell wanted. Does get that done as they are going to have a drag race all the way down the pit straight. And neither driver opting for the slipstream of Darnell. Harrell now getting a little piece of it. But Michaels now trying to hold on to the lead, has somehow found himself in the hands of the lead. Now just needs to keep it together and bring this car home in one piece, but cannot get lazy as Slokey is just behind, and all of these cars that have shown that they have maybe a little bit more pace than he does. Saba looking for a dive on the inside, putting the pressure on Wagner. Was not able to get the run for that move, but now pushes Wagner into a defensive position. And now Saba trying to get this move done. Maybe a little bit of a hip check from Saba as Wagner goes wide, trying desperately to get that position back. Busch now looking for a move on Harrell as they come through the S's. It took a little bit, but just like those GT2 tires, once they get warmed up, they are definitely warm side by side. Busch maybe getting the move done before they get down to Lookout. Side by side, hard braking as Busch gets touched by Harrell, a little bit of a drift. Busch keeps it together. I don't know if that was entirely Harrell's fault, as Busch did try to turn in, but Harrell, now being courteous, gives Busch the position back. Now Busch up into P2 in GT2, now with one car set on his sights, or his sights set on one more car, that is the GT2 of Wagner. Michaels and Slokey together in a battle for the lead. Slokey now finding himself into the slipstream of Michaels. Slokey may be on for the lead of the race here if Michaels cannot round up the pace to pull away. And as they may enter a battle, that would allow Saba and Darnell to find their way into this battle. Darnell with a little bit of understeer coming through Crowthorne. Not what Darnell needs if he wants to get back into the podium fight. Michaels, bronze driver debut in this race tonight. Does he have the pace to hold on to the lead and bring this race one home in his debut? Slokey looks to deny it as the gap behind is shrinking as they come through Clubhouse and then head down to the S's. Michaels trying to bring that car home safe, but cannot be too safe, as too safe will allow Slokey to put the fight on. And as you saw just in the background, Saba still a lingering threat, not counted out of this fight, as we have 8 minutes left. That gives us about 4 or 5 laps left to go. The work is all on Michael's plate. Does he have the appetite for it as they come through the Crocodiles? Slokey all over the rear bumper of Michaels. Michaels will have to defend like a lion as they head up the hill towards Ingwe. Slokey all over the rear bumper of Michaels. That BMW does have good top speed in a straight line, as Michaels will now start to maybe break the toe, sets himself up defensive as Slokey wants to go for the move. He will have to try it around the outside, and Michaels will take the apex. Hard braking zone forces Slokey to the outside, the suboptimal line. Michaels will now hold the advantage as they come through turns 2, 3, and 4. But Slokey may be looking for a late move as they come into barbecue. Will not happen yet. That would have been an absolutely daring move, but he did show the potential for it, maybe to get Michaels to panic and back out as they come through Sunset. Slokey all over the rear bumper of Michaels, just as Michaels was with Saba at the very beginning of this race as they come through Clubhouse. Slokey still all over the rear bumper of Michaels, and has Michaels driven the tires off of that BMW. Should not be looking at any tire wear yet, but that BMW is very squirrely coming out of these sharp corners, these 90-degree corners. Michaels does open the gap slightly as they head into Lukop, but is he having troubles getting that traction down? Saba inching ever so much closer to this battle. The fight is not quite as intense as it was between Michael and Saba, as Michael has now found a little bit of pace, opened that gap up to around 9/10, but Saba 2.3 seconds away. He is not out of the fight, still on the podium, as Darnell, I believe, may have had another incident, still in P3 in GT3 with a nice margin on either side, but maybe with some damage or hot tires or damaged tires, having some trouble getting that car controlled and to do what he wants it to. The gap growing. Slokey now 1.1 seconds behind Michaels. Michaels 5 minutes left to bring this car home. Slokey also looking for, I believe, their first win in this Sunday series. Saba, plenty of wins to his name, definitely one to bring the pace to the field. Does not want to be denied the lead that they worked so hard for in qualifying. And Saba will not be denied. The gap still staying at that 2.3 seconds, so when the timing boards update, it is down by a tenth. A tenth a lap, or a tenth a sector, is not going to be enough to close this gap as much as Saba would need. Saba needs to find some serious pace, or needs the mistake from Michaels or Slokey. Slokey now slightly dropping off the rear of Michaels. Gap now 1.2 as we head to the next timing zone as we come out of Lukop. Check the deltas. Is Slokey now falling off the rear of Michaels, pushing that car a little bit too hard? As the timing boards update, gap staying about the same, but Saba taking another tenth out in that previous sector. Saba showing that he is not out of this fight at all, but may not have enough speed to close the gap, as Michaels may be closing up on a little bit of lap traffic by the end of this race. Car number 212 of Poplinski at the end of the straight now, heading into Crowthorne turn 2 just now. Busch now onto the rear of Wagner. This is the fight for the GT2 win, the GT2 lead, and with this many laps, or with this much time left, only a couple laps left, 2 or 3 laps left, it is very much looking like this is the fight for the win, as Wagner trying to defend against Busch as they come into barbecue. Busch getting a nice run out of barbecue as they head into sunset. Busch looking to maybe force Wagner into a defensive line. Not close enough to put that pressure on yet. Saba now 1.6 seconds behind the leading Michaels. The gap has grown 1.3 seconds to Slokey. Saba now looking to do battle with Slokey here very shortly, as Michaels has found some pace in that car, is not enough pace to run away from Saba. But the lead still in Michaels' hands, but the win is not out of sight just yet. 0.3 of a second between Saba and Slokey. Saba may be in the slipstream range of Slokey when they come out of Ingwe. Not quite yet. Actually, Saba may be in that slipstream range. Saba is much closer to Slokey than he was previously. The gap from Michaels to Slokey growing to 1.8 seconds now. Slokey dropping off the pace, may fall into the clutches of Saba, as it's this lap and one more. Michaels will have some lap traffic to deal with in the GT2 battle for the lead. Busch trying to get it done, has this lap and one more to get this move done for the lead. as they head into sunset. Busch once again trying to set Wagner on a suboptimal line, but not close enough to have that pressure really mean anything. Maybe a dive bomb into clubhouse. The move not on yet. Michaels still trying to hold on to this lead. The gap is growing 2.2 seconds now, as now Saba inching ever so much closer to the rear bumper of Slokey. Slokey goes wide at Lukop. That is not good for his second place position. As the timing boards update, Sabo is all over the rear bumper of Slokey. Will definitely be in the slipstream. I don't think that, unless Michaels makes a mistake, that Sabo will have the pace to get this position away from Michaels. Michaels will take the white flag here at the start-finish line this lap. Will have one more lap to hold on to this lead, as Michaels looks to take home his first win in his debut in the Sunday Series. Slokey and Saba now doing battle, as Busch and Wagner still in battle, as nope, Busch has got that move done. It must have come at Crocodile. Busch ahead of Wagner. Darnell in P4 in GT3, not going to be able to take those crucial points away in the championship from Saba. Saba joined in the midway point of the season, but has shown exceptional pace, winning quite a few races in this series. Has definitely taken the fight to the current championship podium, and with Rivera no longer participating in this series, as Michaels now looks to navigate some lap traffic here of Poplinski. Slokey still trying to defend the position from Saba. Just a few more corners left to hold on. But the same goes for Michaels, as Michaels looks to take home his first win here in the Sunday Series. And as they come down the hill out of Lukop, headed towards the left-hand kink of Mineshaft, before the hard braking zone of the Crocodiles, or into the Crocodiles, headed towards the Cheetah. Michaels with just 2 corners left to go to bring home victory for the first time in the Sunday Multi-Class Series, as he comes through the Cheetah into Ingwe. Michaels will take the win in his debut race in the Sunday Series. He just ran his own race and the lead fell into his lap, and he was able to take it home. Good job from Michael. Slokey will hold on to the lead as Saba makes a slight mistake and still finishes P3 in GT3. Busch takes home the win in GT2. Wagner P2 in GT2. Harrell just behind Drain. Drain P3 in GT2. Harrell P4. Darnell P4 in GT3. Kelta takes home P5 in GT3. Mott looks to take home P6, just behind the sister car of Kelta. Mott and Kelta in the next race. Look out for a good battle between them. Rowan P5 in GT2. Alarcon looks to take home P7 in GT3. Coming out of Ingwe now. Breakfast with Man and Good Gazelle. Man with some damage on the front of that Mercedes. Good Gazelle and Merkel having a little bit of a scrap here as they come to the line. Good Gazelle will finish ahead of Merkel. Then Maldonado, Crilly, and Johnston with a battle here for position at the very end of the race. Crilly as they head into the Crocodiles. Johnston looking to maybe get this position away from Crilly. Both drivers running nice and wide at the exit of the Crocodiles, headed towards the kink of the Cheetah. And it looks like Crilly may have this move locked down. I don't think Johnston will be able to get the position away. And Crilly will finish ahead of Johnston. Good Gazelle, I will get you some more Good Gazelle on board in race 2. As they finished in race 1, Michaels in P1, his debut race in the Sunday Series. Slokey in P2, Saba in P3. Pole sitter taking home still a podium, but not the win that he was looking for. Darnell P4, Kelta P5, Mott P6, Alarcon P7, Man P8, Gutgazelle P9, Merkel P10, Maldonado P11, Crilly P12, Johnston P13, Norman P14. In GT2, Busch P1, starting from the pit lane, putting himself at the very back of the field, looking to move forward, or was looking to move forward, did move forward, takes home the win in GT2. Wagner P2, Drain P3, Harrell P4, Rowan P5, Breakfast P6, Harvey P7, DeHaro P8, Poplinski P9, and Bird P10. As we head into race 2, Saba looking to hold on to his lead, starting from the pole, looking to hold on to that position. Darnell looking to move forward. Michael's looking to take home another win. Did have the pace, but was unable to set the lap in qualifying, but was eventually able to get the position. It kind of just fell into his lap, which does happen. That is not uncommon. And Michaels takes home the win in race 1. Hello, YouTube chat. I will make sure that I get some more on board with Gutgazelle in race 2. But with battles for the lead in race 1, that does take a little bit of priority, and the racing was very, very good in race 1. But for the formation lap, I can guarantee that I can get some on board with Gutgazelle. As we will go on board with Gutgazelle now. Oh, there we go. There is Gutgazelle. And we will go right along with him for the onboard. More Gutgazelle content is what the people want. Well, the people will get what the people want. But lead coverage does take precedent. If you would like more Gutgazelle content, you should convince Gutgazelle to consider driving in the Wednesday series, as that series gets a lot more viewership, has a lot more drivers in it, and has more races per night. 3 races or 2 races in the Wednesday series compared to the 1 or 2 races in the Sunday series. As we are on board with Gutgazelle. Yeah, the race 1 start was overall pretty clean. It was definitely a hard-fought battle for anyone who came home in P1. Busch started from the pit lane, was able to get that win back. Did set the pole time in GT2, but started from the pit lane, was able to get that lead back. As 30 seconds left, we should be engines fired. As Gutgazelle now engines fired, as we will go on board with Gutgazelle for the formation lap. Salty P1 in race 2. I wonder what the payout would be on that bet. No misfortune to Salty, but I feel like the payout on that bet would be quite big, which would mean that I would maybe put a little bit of money on that. Now rolling with Gutgazelle. Something about Assetto Corsa Competizione that is very, very nice to see. If you look down the bottom left, the legs of the drivers, you can see when they get on the gas and the brake, you can see the actuation of the feet, the actuation of the pedals. You can also see the movement of the steering wheel and the movement of the head as well as they turn the steering wheel, as the driver will look in the direction that they are turning. Something that is taught in motorsports and very many things is that the body follows the eyes, or the body follows the head follows the eyes. Look where you are looking to go. So as you would come here into Sunset, you would look at maybe the apex, or you would look at the groove, the rubbered in groove of the track, and you would head in the direction that you are looking for. As Norman kind of appearing on the camera there. I don't think you can tell Norman that he really can't do anything. As they come through Blue Cup. I think it's Bird getting a little bit dicey as they come through Blue Cup. I saw him over in the grass in Gazelle's rearview mirror. And as they get the 2x2 call, we will be able to ride along for the formation. And as they get the formation call, Gazelle assumes his position on the grid, and they will line up for the race start. Hopping back on with Saba, your leader as they come through turn 16 Ingwe. Saba leading the field, was unable to hold on to the lead at the end of race 1 as Michaels, the driver to his right, was able to take it. As they go for the green flag once again. Green. We are racing once more. TRC Sunday Series Race 2 here at Kyalami. Michaels all over the rear bumper of Saba, looking for that move very, very early, but Saba closing that door 100% does not allow Michaels to get that move done. Now Michaels at a severe disadvantage. Darnell takes to the inside, and Darnell gets the position away as the leaders cycle through. The field cycling through nicely. We did not have as many cars starting in the pit lane. Saba now able to open up a gap with Busch in P2 now, starting on the grid. Darnell P3 and Michaels P4. Saba trying to run away from this field as fast as he can, get those tires warmed up and get a move on. Michaels looking to take back the P2 position in GT3 away from Darnell, as Darnell was able to get that move early on Michaels, but Michaels pulling alongside Darnell as Michaels he looked like he may have gotten that move fully done as they headed into Lukop, but Michaels too deep on the brakes, too eager to get that move done, will drop back a couple positions as he goes off into the grass. Does not drop a position in class, but Alarcon and the McLaren 720S behind it now to attack. And there are fights to be had all through the field. Drain and Harrell, two cars fighting as Michael's still trying to get past this duo of GT2s and get back onto the lead fight. Just a little bit too eager, too early in the race. The brakes weren't warmed up all the way. Michael's looking for the inside of Harrell, will not find it. Drain and Harrell both in the Audi R8 GT2 as they come down the line. Saba leads the first lap with Busch in tow, Darnell just behind, and then the battling GT2s of Drain and Harrell taking the second and third spots of GT2. Michaels in third in GT3 as DeHaro is under attack from Harvey, and I think Harvey may have gotten that move done. Harvey did get that move done. Norman and Merkel in battle behind in GT3. Gutgazelle looking to make a move on Breakfast and move forward in positions there as he is growing a gap to Poplinski as they come through Sunset towards the clubhouse. Gutgazelle setting to the outside, maybe cutting back to the inside as he will try to get this move done and get past Breakfast, but Breakfast taking up a lot of the track there. Saba still your leader. The gap to Bush has grown slightly, and the gap from Bush to Darnell has also grown. Drain now with Michaels splitting the pair of GT2s as Michaels is desperately trying to get back up into the lead fight for GT3. Alarcon sitting comfortably in P4 but can't get too comfortable as Man and Slokey, two GT3s hanging just behind. Alarcon, this may be a three-way fight for the fourth position, but Man and Slokey heading into the Cheetah. Very, very tight, and Slokey goes for a cut-across move, a dive bomb into Ingwe. That does put Slokey on the suboptimal line as Man will go around the outside. And Man looks to hold onto this position, still has the position as they came to the timing board, but Slokey now has the inside as they head towards Crowthorne. And as they come through Crowthorne, Slokey will move to the inside, take that move away, close the door. See you later. Thank you for coming. And I will be getting on with my life. Slokey would like to say that, but Man is not quite letting that happen as Man is still on the attack as they come into Sunset. Man is in the slipstream of Slokey here. Michaels still trying to catch up to the GT2 of Drain. He did put himself in between this fight, and it has opened the fight between Drain and Harrell, almost guaranteeing Drain the P2 GT2 position for now. And as Alarcon comes through the S's, Slokey still on his rear bumper as they have now opened a gap to Man behind. Slokey now looking for this move on Alarcon. Slokey P2 in the race prior. Not looking so good, not looking so fortunate in race 2. Granted, that was due to a lot of happenings in the race 1 and the lead fight in race 1. Saba still your leader, coming out of Ingwe with Bush in tow. Darnell coming through in P2 in GT3, P3 overall. Michaels now fully onto the rear bumper of Drain, will be tucked into the slipstream, does not have the power to get past that Audi GT2 on the straight, but does have the pace to do so in the technical sections coming up. And as they come through Crowthorne, headed towards Barbecue, Michaels will look to close that gap. Hopping on with Gutgazelle, still looking for this move on Breakfast. Bird, a lap car, now actually not a lap car, a battle in GT2. Bird and Breakfast, Gutgazelle locked in behind as Merkel is in position to attack Gutgazelle. Merkel and Gutgazelle coming through Sunset now with the battling GT2s of Bird and Breakfast just ahead. Gutgazelle nowhere to go as he is trying to get around Breakfast. Merkel now in tow, and Breakfast holding up Gutgazelle slightly as Merkel is now all over the rear bumper of that Aston Martin. Gutgazelle looking to go side by side with the Porsche of Merkel, or of Breakfast. Breakfast hard contact into the wall, up on two wheels. Very, very hard contact, and he's going to have to take that car into the pits, and I believe that is going to be his night over. That car is not drivable. A racing incident with Gutgazelle, and now Gutgazelle around at the exit of Lukop, trying to get that car turned back around and rejoin the circuit. A little bit too much, too late, and Gutgazelle dropping down the order. Hopping back on with the race leaders. Saba Now growing a 3-second gap to the GT2 of Busch behind. Darnell trying to close that gap. Now Michaels past Drain, trying to move back up towards the lead positions. The GT3s definitely showing to have the superior pace around Kyalami here tonight. And car number looked to be 81. That is car number 81 at Breakfast. Meatball flag there. We'll have to pull that car into the pit lane, and that all but ends Breakfast's endeavor into the races tonight. The leaders have spread out quite a bit. Michael's still trying to move forward onto the lead. Drain and Harrell. No cars between them. Michaels did open up that gap between Drain and Harrell. Harrell trying to close that gap still. As Slokey onto the back of Harrell now. As the GT3s are showing more pace than the GT2s, Slokey may be moving through the GT2s here shortly, as we are about a third of the way through this race 2 tonight. Harvey onto the back of DeHaro. Harvey may be looking for this move on DeHaro. This would be for P4 in class, as Wagner has moved down the order since the race start. And as they come out of Ingwe, Harvey fully into the slipstream of DeHaro, but not quite close enough to capitalize as they head towards Crowthorne. Darnell closing that gap to the GT2 of Busch, ever so much closer every single lap. Michaels also creeping forward onto the rear bumper of that Nissan Nismo GTR of Darnell. Nismo GTR maybe not quite the best car for this track, but Darnell has shown that it has a little bit of pace to compete. Currently P2 in class. This may be the fight for P3 shortly, as Michaels now fully onto the rear bumper of Darnell, giving him a little bit of a flash of the lights, saying, hey, I am coming, I've got some pace. Trying to maybe throw Darnell off, get him to look back, maybe miss his braking point. A little bit of a mind game there with the flash of the lights as they come through Mineshaft, the sweeper before the hard braking zone into the Crocodiles. Michaels closing up this gap a lot now, less than 3/4 of a second. He will be in that slipstream range if he can keep this gap the same as they head towards Ingwe. Coming through the kink of Cheetah now. Darnell now off the track. That will definitely open the door for Michaels, as Michaels will tuck in right onto the rear bumper of that Nissan Nismo GTR. The Nissan GTR does have a lot of top speed, but does it have enough to outrun a BMW in the slipstream? Does Michaels go for the late lunge here into Crowthorne? Does not, sets up wide to get the run as they come out of turn 2. And as they come through turn 3, Michaels just unable to get that move done. Coming through Barbecue, Michaels still all over the rear bumper of Darnell. And coming through Sunset, Darnell doing everything he can to hold on to this position, but I don't think he'll be able to hold on to it too much longer. Michaels sweeps across the track, opts for the outside line to get the optimal exit of Clubhouse, forces Darnell to be to the inside, but Darnell will have the inside and does get the position taken back as they head towards the S's. Now it's Darnell and Michaels at Lukop once more. When they did this previous, Michaels went too deep, 2 tires in the grass. Michaels setting up very, very wide to the outside to try and get a run on Darnell, but may not be able to outrun that Nissan as they head down the hill towards the right-hand or left-hand kink of Mineshaft before the braking zone into the Crocodiles. Darnell is able to open up that gap slightly, but in the more technical section here, the BMW does seem to have the upper hand as they come through the Cheetah. Does Darnell get it right this time? That he does. Michael's still all over the rear bumper, setting up very, very nice and wide. Darnell slightly defensive, taking the middle of the track. And as they come through Ingwe one more time. The battle rages on. Michaels still all over the rear bumper of Darnell, and I think we may go on board with Michaels here to participate in this fight here. Coming through Crowthorne now, just all over the rear bumper of that Nissan Nismo GTR, braking slightly into Barbecue as they come out of Barbecue, head towards Sunset. Michaels fully flashing the lights, Darnell flashing the lights in response, saying, I don't care, I know what you're trying to do. A little bit of communication there with those lights, and Michaels a little bit too eager on the curve coming through Sunset. Will open that gap slightly as they come through Clubhouse. Maybe that opening gap has allowed Michaels to get a little bit of breathing room, build some more pace as they come through the S's. Coming out of the S's, that BMW does seem to have the upper hand, but Darnell will park that car on the apex, force Michaels to go around the outside. Very, very hard move to get done, but does give the better run at the exit. But Darnell parks that GTR on the apex, does not allow the door to open for Michaels. It's a run down towards the mine shaft and into the braking zone with the Crocodile. Not a move, or not a overtaking spot that we have seen have much use of tonight. Michaels feints the move as they head into the Crocodiles, and then towards the Cheetah. The next opportunity will be at turn 16 Ingwe, but Darnell has had a little bit of trouble coming through the kink. Does not have trouble there, fully to the inside, very, very defensive. That will put him on a suboptimal line as Michaels is all over the rear bumper of that Nissan once again, but does not have the top speed to contend with this Nissan as they run down the pit straight. They come through the kink of one. Michaels setting up very, very wide, forcing Darnell defensive, but Darnell has enough of a gap. Darnell knows that, but Michaels breaks much deeper into Crowthorne. Maybe a little bit of traction issue from this BMW, something that we saw in race one. And then coming through Barbecue, Michaels trying everything that he can to build as much pace as he can, but the gap to Darnell stays the same. More flashes of the lights from both drivers, communicating with the flasher, saying, I'm not going to give you what you're looking for, but Michaels may have some sort of a look as they head into Clubhouse all over the rear bumper. Then coming through the S's once more. This is where the BMW does shine. A touch of the brakes to offset the line of that BMW, but Michaels all over the rear, looks for the move on the outside. Hard braking zone. Darnell once again parks that GTR on the apex. Does Michael get the switcheroo? He has a look to the inside, does not have the pace. We'll have to tuck back in once more, and we go for the third lap of this battle as we get the halfway call. Headed down through the mine shaft towards braking zone of the Crocodiles. Michaels tries to set up very wide to the outside, but goes for a late braking crossover move. Gets it done, but does he have the pace to hold on to it? He does. It was an absolute savage dive bomb from Michaels, but if it gets the job done, it gets the job done. Michaels up into P2 and GT3, but how much time has that cost them? They are now 8 seconds behind the GT3 Lamborghini of Saba. And as we head back to our garage view, Darnell trying to attack this position back. The battle is not over yet, only halfway through this race, and how much of those tires did Michaels use? We saw him have some traction issues towards the end of race number one. Do those issues continue here? Hopping on with Mott, looking for a move on Merkel here shortly as they are running down the straight. Car number 12 of Norman stopped at the exit of Cheetah. Maybe just got a little too much of the sausage curb, unsettled the car, and spun him around. Kelta now onto the rear bumper of Bird. This is not a move for position. Gut Gazelle chasing the Porsche of Crilly, looking to get that position done. Norman now behind Gut Gazelle. Gut Gazelle taking that position away from Norman when Norman lost it at Cheetah. Michaels now opening a gap to Darnell with his sights set on the GT2 of Busch. I don't think that there is enough pace in that BMW to close that gap all the way. 2 corners behind. Michaels just coming into Cheetah now. Saba just coming out of Ingwe. Does Michaels have enough pace? Does Saba make any mistakes? We saw Saba make a mistake in race 1. Does Saba have the pace to hold on to the lead here? Currently showing it now, but that gap is closing. Michaels trying to close that gap to Busch. Wagner looking for a move on DeHaro here shortly, but getting very, very wide coming out of Ingwe. Kelta still looking for this move on Bird as they come into the Crocodiles. Kelta with damage on the front of that Aston Martin. Good Gazelle going around Crilly. I don't know if maybe there was contact there. Good Gazelle slow on the track, I think, trying to give that position back to Crilly. But Crilly may have damage on that Porsche. I think there may have been contact between these two. As Good Gazelle diving into the pits may have severe damage on that car. I don't see it. But Good Gazelle obviously pulling into the pits. And I think that may be his night over. Unfortunate for Good Gazelle, as they will pit to repair the second car to come into the pits tonight with damage. Saba with Busch. The gap growing as Saba has now put the jets on. Michaels was closing that gap. Does not seem to be anymore. Have to see when the timing boards update. Still 2 corners behind the lead car. Busch may be dropping a little bit behind in pace to the BMW GT3 of Michaels. Darnell still currently holding on to P3 in GT3, but Slokey not out of the picture yet, and just behind the battle for P3 for P2 and P3 in GT2 as they head towards the turn 2 of Crowthorne. Drain still holding on to that position for now. Car number 99 as Good Gazelle is now coming out of the pits. Wagner and DeHaro in battle for position. Wagner got that move done on DeHaro up into P4 in GT2. Harrell still following behind Drain. Those cars just lapping each other, or lapping together with a similar pace, not really passing each other, just kind of holding that pace the whole race. Does one driver maybe have any pace to pull out of the car over the other? Michaels now closing the gap to Busch slightly, the gap from Busch to Saba opening up. Car number 55 of DeHaro. Sorry, that's car number 65. Car number 55 of Maldonado. Very, very hard damage. May have had an incident at Cheetah as well. The third car tonight to come into the pits with damage, and that Ferrari has seen much better days. Unfortunate for Maldonado, but that will essentially take Maldonado out of contest for this race tonight. Saba still with a large gap, and that gap seems to be enough of a cushion to hold on to the lead. Michaels in P2, still good for points. Still good for a debut in this series. Darnell still in P3 in class. Slokey P4, inching ever so much closer to the rear bumper of that Nissan of Darnell. Drain and Harrell still just lapping within the same delta of each other, just holding their pace, currently sitting P2 and P3 in class. Alarcon now in no man's land all by himself. Same with the 87 of Rowan, also in no man's land. Car number 99 of Wagner leading a small group of cars. Wagner, DeHaro, Mann, Harvey, Mott, and Rowan. Rowan now the next car behind in no man's land. Merkel in no man's land. Kelta also in no man's land. Damage on the front of that Aston Martin, but does not seem to be affecting the car too much. A little bit of hood flap, but not too bad. Good Gazelle out of the pits with fixing that damage will bring the pace up, but will not bring him back up into positions as he does lose a lap with that repair. Yes, Good Gazelle did have to pit. I believe he had damage, and if you get a severe enough amount of damage on the car, you get a race control flag telling you that you have to come to the pits to repair the car, as it puts you at a danger to the other drivers on track. As in, they are essentially saying your car is undrivable, you need to come bring that car in. And that flag looks like a meatball, so people tend to call it a meatball flag, as it is a solid black flag with a orange circle in the middle that looks a little bit like a meatball. And if you are in the Twitch chat, there is a meatball flag emote for you to use. As Bush coming through. Car number 103 of Bird also into the pits. Bird repairing damage on that car as well. And I believe Maldonado has put the car on the trailer tonight. No longer see Maldonado in the order, and I think their night is over. Bush and Michaels. Michaels closing the gap on Bush, but no move to be made anytime soon. Darnell with Slokey still lapping behind, and now it is just the survival to the end of the race. Everyone seems to like the points that they're in or do not have the ability to close the gap in the time, so it is just race your race, race safe until the end, and bring the car home in one piece. We have about 4 or 5 laps left in this race. Harrell, Alarcon, Wagner, DeHaro, Mann, Harvey, and Mott. You can get a little bit more Good Gazelle content for those Good Gazelle fans, because I know that there are quite a few people watching tonight to see Good Gazelle on track. Good Gazelle in their second race with us tonight, but once again, if you would like to see more Good Gazelle on track, have them race in the Wednesday series. It is a very, very good series and has anywhere from 30 to 40 drivers per race on track at once. The Sunday series does fluctuate with the driver participation a little bit, but the Wednesday series does seem to be the fan favorite. It is a KTM GT2 GT4 multi-class series, and next week we will be at the Indianapolis Road Course for 2 10-minute sprints and a 40-minute sprint, I believe. Let me double check on the race format of the Wednesday series next week. Yes, 2 10-minute races and a 40-minute race. And something with the... Ooh, is Mott with a little bit of damage on that car, I believe. As Mott maybe had some contact with Harvey there. Hopping back on with Good Gazelle. Coming out of the Crocodiles and into Cheetah. But there is a battle up ahead for position. Looks to be between Mott and Harvey. It is not necessarily for position, as it is just for track position, just overall. Bush still lapping pretty much on his own. The gap to Saba growing. Saba, I would assume, frustrated with his result in race 1. Very, very steadfast in his efforts here in race 2. getting at the front, staying at the front, and looks to be finishing at the front. Michaels up into P2 in GT3, but Darnell not necessarily out of this fight. Just one corner behind Michaels, and one mistake for Michaels would throw him into the clutches of Darnell. Same for Darnell with Slokey. As we will have 2 more laps at the line. So when Saba comes across the line, it will be this lap and 1 more. And Darnell with a little bit of a mistake at Cheetah does open the door slightly for Slokey. As gap now up a second from where it was between Darnell and Michaels. Drain and Harrell, the battle for P2 in GT2. It's coming to a climax here. This battle has been raging on the entire race. Drain now still holding on to that position. Harrell trying to desperately get that position away. Harrell has been waiting behind for a long time. Harrell was scored ahead of Drain at the line, but Drain took that position back. Now this is the battle of the race for now. Harrell very, very wide coming out of Sunset as they come through Clubhouse. Drain getting a little bit squirrely. That will maybe open the door for Harrell. Harrell giving a flash of the lights as they come through the S's. And I think it's time that we go on for another onboard here with Harrell. And as we are now on board with Harrell, as this is the fight for P2 in GT2, you see those lights flashing, just giving more and more flashes of those lights, especially in towards braking zones, trying to do his best to throw Drain off of the line. It does seem to work here at Crocodiles. The gap is going to close a lot as they head towards Cheetahs. The one thing that Harrell needs to do is get all over the rear bumper of Drain here and nearly going alongside, or going fully alongside, nearly going past as they come into the braking zone. This is going to be the battle for P2 in GT2 on the very last lap. As Harrell behind Drain, the battle has been just a silent fight, a cold war almost between Drain and Harrell. Both drivers just lapping at similar pace, waiting till the very end to strike. And as they come through Barbecue towards Sunset, the battle is fully on. Drain ahead of Harrell. Harrell flashing those lights all the time, trying to cause the mistake. A little bit of an overshoot from Drain does slightly open the door for Harrell, but Harrell very, very wide coming into Clubhouse. That also forces Drain very, very deep, and the move is done. Harrell gets the move past Drain. It is not over yet, though, as Drain does have an opportunity to put the fight back onto Harrell. But as they head into Lukop, Harrell right now is in the lead. Harrell ahead of Drain for P2 in GT2. Saba takes the checkered flag in race 2 tonight. Michaels will take home P2 very shortly. But Drain and Harrell gets this move done on the last lap. With 2 corners left to go, Cheetah and Ingwe. And I believe Harrell will have this move done. Drain with the flash of the lights, a last-ditch effort. Drain flashing the light, or Harrell flashing the lights back in a response, saying, "Ha ha, you tried." Both drivers flashing their lights for a good race between each other as they come to the line. Alarcon across the line, Wagner across the line. Wagner and DeHaro, they bang doors as they come across the line. Wagner is scored behind DeHaro, 0.05 of a second between them. Harvey next across the line. Mann and Mott with Gutgazelle in tow next to come across the line. Rowan coming through Ingwe now. headed down the pit straight to come across the line. Merkel next across. And then Kelta next across. And then Norman will be our final car to cross the line tonight. Hopping on with Norman, coming into Ingwe. And then as we come out of Ingwe onto the pit straight. And that will conclude tonight's festivities in GT3 and overall Saba. Your winner in race 2, Michaels P2, Darnell P3, Slokey P4, Alarcon P5, Mott P6, Man P7, Merkel P8, Kelta P9, Norman P10, Crilly P11, Gut Gazelle P12, Maldonado P13, and Johnston P14 in GT2. Bush P1, Harrell P2, Drain P3. Harrell getting that move done for second place at the very end of the race at the last lap. DeHaro P4, Wagner P5, Harvey P6, Rowan P7, Poplinski P8, Breakfast P9, and Bird P10. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Once again, you Gut Gazelle viewers, if you would like to see more Gut Gazelle content, I recommend you have Gut Gazelle join in the Wednesday series, as that would open up more opportunities to see them on track and also have more opportunities for them to be in some good racing. They would be in the KTM Crossbow GT4 racing in bronze, and that also qualifies them for the Holy Grail Bronze Cup. There are 2 more rounds left in that series. I believe those 2 rounds are Indy Road Course this coming week, and I want to say Snetterton at the end, but I could be wrong. But that is all that I have for you tonight. That is all the racing that I have for you tonight. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. And I will see you all on Wednesday for the continuation of the KTM Cannonball series. Thank you all for tuning in, and